I feel like when it comes to investing in Pokemon, a lot of times people don't really discuss the items that are above MSRP. And what I mean by that is you spend so much time looking at what's below wholesale and say it must be a good deal because it's below wholesale, but yet there's still a ton of amount of opportunities to pick up certain sealed product that is above MSRP that is still extremely undervalued. We're going to be discussing some of that today in today's video, but before we jump into it, as always, we do weekly giveaways. All you have to do to enter is leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. Now, we're going to be talking about 5 specific items in this video, 2 of which are newer that I feel like I just have to have a discussion about, and then 3 of which are older. And then I'm also going to give one quick honorary mention to 3-pack blister, none other than from Unbroken Bonds. If you guys have been paying attention to the Sun and Moon era product, you guys know that prices have been absolutely skyrocketing. And with that, 3-pack blisters amongst that entire Sun and Moon generation have been a part of that. 3-pack Unified Minds blister packs are going for about $60. Cosmic Eclipse is going for around 75 to 80. And then you have Team Up, which is going for around 100 plus. So when you start to look at the price of Unbroken Bonds at around the $48 to $50 price point, it's the cheapest of the 4 items, and it feels like it's the most undervalued for that reason when you start talking about the potential that you could see in the rise of these 3-pack blisters. Obviously, it's not my favorite, which is why it's an honorable mention of the 5 items mentioned, but it's still an opportunity. I think it's worth considering, even though the price was $40 not too long ago. I think it's still worthwhile pickup at that $50 price point. Moving into the top 5, we're going to kind of kick off with some of the newer items first, just because I wanted to get those out of the way. Starting off with one I feel like you just can't not discuss. It has to be Crown Zenith ETBs. I mean, the price of Crown Zenith ETBs right now are ridiculously cheap, sitting around the high 3s to low $40 price point. You can find elsewhere outside of TCG Player in the mid $30, and ultimately that's an insane price. When it comes to distro, you're typically, depending upon the distributor, picking them up for around the $30 to $35 price point. I know for us in our wholesale program, when there was a reprint, we were picking them up for about $31.25 per ETB. So it's an insane deal to be able to pick that up right now after the market has crashed for these specific items, being that it's not that far above wholesale after the reprint occurred where the price was at $60. We look at the set overall, I think it's by far one of the best sets in the Sword and Shield era, and although it's fairly new of a set, I mean, we're talking about a year old at this point, it's still one I think is going to perform really well long term, putting it in my top 3 in terms of best sets in the Sword and Shield era. So I think it's worth mentioning that it's a potential for a really high amount of upside in the future. Moving on to the next item, this is going to be a kind of mix of not one specific item for Silver Tempest, but we're talking Silver Tempest booster boxes, we're talking the loose packs, along with the loose sleeved. Silver Tempest, if you guys don't know, had a recent reprint going back into September. You've had reprints for the sleeve boosters, you've had reprints for the booster boxes, and because of that, the prices have tanked. There was also an amazing deal that was recently had through the wholesale program on distribution. If you want to check that out, of course, links down in the description below, where they were selling Build and Battle stadiums for $24 a piece of Silver Tempest. You do the math, there's 12 packs in a Build and Battle stadium, so the price point per pack was $2. With that flash sale to end out the year, you saw an absolute flood of these loose packs hit the market, and prices then crashed because of it. Just seeing how Silver Tempest has performed before the reprint happened and before you had these insane flash deals to end out the year, it was an item that was performing extremely well. I'm talking loose packs going above $4, sleeve packs going above $5, the booster box going, 150 plus. And so for now, to have the opportunity to pick them up at sub $3, I mean, we're talking in the mid 2s to high 2s for both the loose and the sleeved. That just seems like an absolute monster of a deal. Same thing goes with the booster box. Right now, you've seen the price on TCG Player climb to the low point of around 115 to 120, and now it's at around 135, starting to creep up on Lost Origins price, and you can still find it outside of TCG Player for around the 120 price point. So I think all three of these specific Silver Tempest items are an amazing opportunity that you definitely don't want to pass up on long term. Moving on, now we're going to start talking about the items that are above MSRP that are extremely worthwhile looking into when it comes to picking up. Talking about my favorite by far of these three items, I think the other two are great, but Celebrations Elite Trainer Boxes. I mean, it's an amazing deal when you consider that this set is already several years old now. It is a specialty 25th anniversary set for Pokemon, and with it, they also announced that once they had their initial print for Celebrations, they weren't going to be printing anymore. And so far, we haven't really seen that with specifically Celebrations ETBs. And so the fact that they're sitting at around the $80 price point, MSRP being $50, and you can still pick them up outside for around $65 to $70 from TCG Player, it just feels like a no-brainer comparing it to some of the other Elite Trainer Box performances going back into the Sun and Moon era. Obviously, they're much older, but just taking a look at, even going further back to XY era with the Generations ETBs, the upside is insane. We're talking about $300, $400, $500, $600 price ETBs over the next 5 to 10 years. Obviously, this is not financial advice. I don't have a crystal ball, but for a specialty set like this, which is extremely unique with a lot shorter of a print, the fact that it's still this low price is mind-boggling to me, and I think it's really worth the pickup to get some of the ETBs, if not a full case or more. Next item is one I talk about a lot, and that's Hidden Fates Elite Trainer Boxes. Price of Hidden Fates ETBs have been basically going sideways since the reprint. If you guys don't know, Hidden Fates has been a set that's been out since the end of 2019, early 2020. It's been a phenomenal performer, and for the longest time, there wasn't really a reprint for Hidden Fates Elite Trainer Boxes until the price point went all the way up to $300. Yeah, it went up to $300 in like the span of a year. It was absolutely insane to witness. And with that, the Pokemon Company printed it into the ground to the point of where you saw the low point, which is still goes to show you how high the demand is for this item. It still went to as low as $80. Now, with that, it obviously was able to rebound within a 6 month to year period all the way up to around the 150 to 170 price point. But since then, over the past 3 years, it's basically just been going sideways since the reprint in 2021. And it just feels dumb for it to be at the price point it is, knowing that it's still not even close to its all-time high. I mean, we're still talking around 2x away from that all-time high. And that's if you're talking about purchasing it at the current price point on TCG Player website. You can probably find it elsewhere for a lot cheaper at around the $135, $140 price point. And that just feels like an insane deal when you compare it to the ETB prices of Cosmic Eclipse, Unified Minds, Unbroken Bonds. I mean, all these ETBs around it are going for anywhere between, $300 to $500+. So for it to be that much cheaper than everything around it, and at the time was considered the GOAT in terms of Pokemon sets of all time, it just feels like a no-brainer to pick up this item as well. Moving on to our last and final item. You guys know I have been a huge fan of this specific product. I think it's super slept on. That is the Archus V figure collection. Now, we've had a lot of deals for this specific product, being able to pick it up for as cheap as $20. The MSRP is $25, but it is one that is still extremely undervalued, being in the mid 40s. We've obviously seen the price climb to more than 75%, but if you compare it to some of the other figure collections that have performed well, when they came out during Rebel Clash with the Sword and Shield figure collection, that specific item skyrocketed. It had a really cool, unique promo. It had a really cool, unique figure. And with it as well, it came with some really cool pack selection. Yeah, you're not the biggest fan of Rebel Clash, but Cosmic Eclipse and Guardians Rising was one that people really enjoyed. Well, you go look at the Archus V figure collection. It's got a really cool, unique promo. It's got a really cool, unique figure. And with that, it also has Cosmic Eclipse packs within it too. So it just feels like one of those really unique items, which being at the $45, knowing that the Rebel Clash variant, which arguably, I mean, comes down to opinion, is not as cool as the Arceus one. That one's at right now $125. Still feels like an absolute steal being at $45. And that's why I think it's a huge worthwhile pickup, even though it is currently above MSRP. But that's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like, comment down below. It really helps the algorithm. And as always, just because an item is above MSRP, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't mean it's not a worthwhile pickup. If you guys remember Evolving Skies back when it was at MSRP price of $144, everyone would love to have that again now that it's over $400. So never ever take the price point for granted. Even though we always want the best deal, there's always going to be opportunities that people are sleeping on, and you just got to be able to pay attention.